Hello and welcome to a Firstpost PoV. It's the season of celebrity transformations and so-called fat-to-fit journeys online, all thanks to the newly introduced weight loss medicines in the market. I'm sure you've heard of some of them like Wegovy and Ozempic and Mounjaro. Some of these medicines come in the form of pills and some are also injectable. And health regulators across the world have now started approving these medicines for weight loss. Now, I know it sounds like a great deal. You get to lose a lot of weight without going to the gym. But how safe are these medications? Who are they intended for? And who should definitely not try them out? And what's the science behind it? To try and answer some of these questions, let me introduce my guest, Dr. Scott Isaacs, who's an associate professor at the Emory University School of Medicine. Thank you so much, Doctor, for speaking to us on Firstpost.
Hello, thank you for having me.
My first question is about the science of it. You just hear about these pills that you take and you lose weight, and it almost sounds like a miracle. We hear that it's about suppressing your appetite or your hunger, but what's the science behind it? How does a medicine that you take trigger that sort of a reaction inside your body?
Well, the newer medications, the injectable medications that you just mentioned, they're hormones that work essentially in the brain and the appetite centers of the brain. So they work to reduce appetite, but to also increase the feelings of being full as you eat. So you fill up on less food.
So if I'm getting it right, it's more of a psychological thing that it triggers in your mind, that you feel that you've had enough and therefore you've had enough food. Is that it?
No, I wouldn't say it's psychological. It's truly a biological effect. This is an effect on the appetite center of the brain. And so with the psychology, you can try to lose weight, but the appetite may interfere with that. So by adjusting the appetite level, by what we call lowering the set point, decreasing the amount of food that an individual needs to feel full, these medications can help someone eat less but still be healthy. But it's important to note that it's not skipping the gym. It's important to still go to the gym or to exercise. It's important to still follow a healthy diet. But these medications allow you to do that in a way that's more reasonable and less of a stress and less difficult.
That's a very important reminder for anybody watching that. Don't skip the gym. But a lot of these medicines are seen as adjacent to your diabetes medicines. And a lot of them were also the side effect of the research that was happening into diabetic medication. So how does these particular weight loss drugs differ from the usual diabetic medications that have been on the shelves for decades now?
Well, originally we used to treat diabetes and obesity as separate diseases. And a lot of the medications that we used to use to treat diabetes by lowering blood sugar had the wrong effect on weight and caused people to gain weight. But what we have learned is that really diabetes is just a complication of obesity. So by using a medication that lowers appetite and lowers weight, diabetes improves in and of itself. So these medications were originally approved for diabetes, but we've learned that the way that they work is actually through weight loss.
Right. So clinically speaking, who exactly should be taking these medicines? Because the demand right now, it's widespread. You've got teens demanding it, you've got celebrities, you've got senior citizens. Everybody wants in on this weight loss craze. But clinically, who should be advised to take these weight loss drugs?
Technically, these medications are for people that are overweight or have obesity. And so they're not just for cosmetic use. These are for medical purposes, to lose weight, to improve health. So primarily people that qualify for either having obesity or if they are just in the overweight category, that they have some sort of a medical problem such as high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, or heart disease. So the idea is not just to look better and to get thinner, but to be healthier by improving weight and improving the risk for these diseases.
And on the cosmetic side of things, for people who do take this to simply look better and not necessarily for obesity, the argument against that, is that medical, is that ethical? What's the argument against people taking it solely for cosmetic requirements?
Well, these medications are for long-term use, and we know that if they're discontinued, there's a high risk that the weight is going to be regained. And so if someone is taking it strictly for cosmetic reasons, they may not want to stay on it long term, and the result may be weight regain, and that may not be ideal. So the idea is to be on a medication long term for the health benefits more so than just the cosmetic benefits.
Right. So if I'm someone who's taking these medicines for the long term and I'm someone who suffers from obesity, how exactly do I supplement this medication to ensure that it's sustainable? Like you mentioned, don't skip the gym. What else do we supplement these weight loss drugs with to ensure that it's sustainable and we're not relying solely on the medicines?
Well, the medications are definitely used in combination with the diet. And one of the things that we've learned is that when people lose weight on weight loss medications, they can also lose muscle. And so it's important to incorporate a healthy diet that has plenty of protein. So you want to have a healthy diet, good sources of protein, eating consistently throughout the day, not skipping meals, and trying to have weight loss in a reasonable way so that you're not losing too much muscle.
Are there any sections in the society who should simply stay away from these medications, come what may? Perhaps pregnant women, women who are breastfeeding. Are there any restrictions related to that?
Oh yes, there are different contraindications to these medications. Pregnancy is certainly one of those. Patients that have had problems with their pancreas or perhaps problems with their gallbladder may not be ideal. Some patients have side effects such as nausea, vomiting, upset stomach, diarrhea, constipation. So if they're causing severe side effects that are not tolerable, that's not really an ideal situation. We want the medication to be tolerable and to be something that someone can live with as a long-term medication.
Right. Now, on the question of effectiveness, we've seen a lot of studies and a lot of them funded by these companies, so we can't really trust them. But they do seem to suggest extreme effectiveness of these medicines when done in these studies. But I'm sure you've seen some real-world cases as well of these medicines being used by people who are suffering from obesity. Is the impact equally good in the real world as well?
You know, the real world can oftentimes be different than in pharmaceutical studies that are funded by the company. But I'd say that in my personal experience, I've seen very similar results, that most patients get very good weight loss, but there's certainly a variety. Some patients don't get much of an effect and some people get an incredible effect. And the same goes for side effects. Some people have very minimal side effects or no side effects at all, and some people have quite severe side effects. And so we want to personalize the treatment. This is not really the type of medication that you just want to take on your own. It's really important to work with a qualified healthcare professional that can help with the dosing and the management of the medication so that you can get the best results.
Is that something you worry about, that doctors are becoming a bit too liberal with the way they're prescribing these medicines? Because people are willing to pay all sorts of money to get thin without going to the gym, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a variety of practitioners. As I'm a board certified endocrinologist, and we try to practice using clinical guidelines and trying to use the standard of care. But there certainly are others that are selling this on the internet with not adequate medical supervision. And so people can get these medications in different ways, but I think it's important to think about your long-term health and working with someone who can really help you have a successful result.
Right. You mentioned something a couple of minutes back, which is that when you stop these medications, it's likely that you will put back the weight probably faster than you lost it. What exactly is it about these medicines that when you stop, you regain the weight? Does your appetite come back with a revenge? What exactly is the science behind that?
That's pretty much the bottom line, is that the medications only work when they're taken. And so once they're stopped, there tends to be a gradual weight regain, usually over about a year. And most people gain back about 90% of the weight that they initially lost. And that's based on clinical studies. And so I think we have pretty good documentation that the medications only work when they're taken and don't have an effect after they're stopped.
Where do you see this medication going in our part of the world? I ask because just a couple of days ago, Ozempic was approved by the regulators in India for use. Now, there is an income disparity in India, which means not everybody is able to afford the sort of prices that these medicines sell at. At the same time, obesity is a growing problem even in a country like India. So where do you see the future for these medicines in the third world or the second world markets?
I mean, you make a very good point about the cost, and I think the cost is a problem globally, not just in India. And so what we're looking forward to are more of these medications that will help lower the cost. We're also seeing coming up in the future oral versions of these medications that also may be less expensive. And so maybe generics will start to come out in the next few years as well, certain versions. And so as time goes on and there's more competition, we hope the price will come down. I don't see this class of medications go away. I only see more in the future.
Do you see insurance companies jumping in and deciding it's time to cover these medicines? Because obesity is a life-threatening condition in some cases, is it not?
Yes, and in the United States, that's a constant battle with the insurance companies. Only about 1 in 3 Americans have insurance coverage for weight loss medications. And so that really does present a problem for a lot of people that cannot afford these medications. When these medications are used for diabetes, we have a little bit better effect with insurance being more willing to cover them. But hopefully, as the price comes down, we're going to see coverage going up.
Right. Now, finally, let me just ask you, every medicine keeps evolving. I mean, you think about how the insulin or the diabetes market was, and the medicines in the 70s and the 60s are incomparable to what they are right now. So where do you think these fat loss medicines go next in terms of how you ingest it and also in terms of their effectiveness? What do you think is going to be the next realm for these weight loss drugs?
So where we are right now with these medications, we're considered in the second generation. The first generation of these medicines came out about 20 years ago. And the next iteration will be these medications affecting multiple hormones. In fact, the medication Mounjaro already affects 2 hormones. And there's another medication that's in the pipeline that will probably be coming out in the next year or 2 that affects 3 hormones. And so having multiple appetite regulation hormones affected by the medications will result in better weight loss and more weight loss. The question is, will that mean more side effects? And it may. And so it will also mean more of individualization of picking the right medication for the patient to match their situation.
Right. Every day you open the news and there's something or the other about weight loss drugs nowadays. It's either a country approving a drug or certain complaints about side effects or something or the other. But I think the biggest takeaway from this conversation we've had is that these drugs do work. They're meant for obese people and people who are battling conditions that they're not able to solve on their own, but it should always be supplemented with a proper lifestyle, a sustainable diet, and of course workout as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott Isaacs, for speaking to us on Firstpost and answering some of those questions.
Thank you.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
Stands at $36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktor,
Hindi,
$30 trillion ka karjo.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Sekali radikali.
Japanese,
$4 euro mo.
Portuguese,
Por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select a language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.